Hello, everyone. It's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another episode of Voices from the Shadow Realm, the podcast where we interview the many different men and women that helped bring the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise to life. Welcome to episode 6, and I am joined by the wonderful Tara Sands. Tara, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Of course, very, very honored and privileged to have you. For those of you that don't know, even though I'm sure most of you do, Tara voiced Mokuba Kaiba, brought the younger brother of everyone's favorite rival to life, and voiced Bulbasaur very early on, voiced some characters in Jujutsu Kaisen as well, if you want to talk about a more current show. So I always like to start these by just allowing, and someone like you as well, I mean, your resume, I mean, you're such an accomplished voice actor over
I just
so many
talk a
years. Well, it's worked. So I would love to just kind of get a list of all of the roles that you've played, or the more notable ones. Yeah, okay. The more notable ones.
I was gonna say, I don't want to bore you too much. Early years Pokemon. I played. During that time, they had us play tons of different roles on the show. It's handled a lot differently now, but I ended up playing over 50 roles on the first 8 seasons, and the movies roles like Jasmine and Bulbasaur and Oddish and Clefairy and Tori and young Sammy Oak, and I will not remember them all. Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Mokuba when he wasn't kidnapped, or sometimes when he was kidnapped.
Happened a lot.
A lot. Shaman King in the old version and the new version, I play Anna. Jujutsu Kaisen, I play Urahime, Momo, and Baby Panda. Hunter x Hunter, Biscuit. That's a little overview, I guess.
A little
I don't
snapshot of the many, many different roles. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, it really, it's so cool to me too, because it's not just the big ones early on like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, but it's even some of the ones that, have, Hunter x Hunter and Jujutsu Kaisen's one of the bigger ones of the last couple of years. So,
it's cool to see that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we never know what's going to hit. I mean, I've worked on so many shows that nobody ever watches. So
yeah, I'm sure.
It's fun when they hit.
Of course,
sure.
Yeah. And we'll get into that as well. I always like to ask, the channel's Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. I'm sure most people here want to know specifically about Mokuba, and I promise we will get to that. But I also feel like it would be a disservice to not ask you some general voice acting questions as well.
I'm wearing my Kaiba Corp shirt for you.
That's a great shirt. I wore my Yugi jersey when I interviewed Jonathan, and I'm not wearing any.
Awesome.
I'm wearing like a generic dress shirt. So
I should get one of those jerseys though. Okay.
You should.
I need to order. I need to order more stuff for sure.
Well, and speaking of, there's so much cool merch. Speaking of cool merch, because I actually ordered a 4Kids Flashback hat. That sadly, I'll edit it and post me wearing the hat. Hopefully it comes before the episode comes out. It didn't make it in time, so I was going to have it on.
I appreciate you doing that. That's really cool.
Of course. And so 4Kids Flashback, I think we got to start there, because I'm sure there's a lot of people, including myself, I wasn't even too familiar with this production until you had mentioned it to me. And I mean, you want to talk about getting a look at behind the scenes of one of the most influential dubbing companies I'd say ever.
Yeah.
That's what your podcast does. So talk about 4Kids Flashback. What kind of inspired you to do it? What it is? I'd love to know more about it, and I think people watching would love to know as well.
Cool. Thank you for plugging it. So I started this podcast. I've been going to conventions for years, and the actors are sort of the face of all this stuff, and we have the privilege of meeting the fans and talking to people and being thanked or yelled at for things that they like or don't like. But really, there was a whole office full of people doing the majority of the work. Like, it's funny that I'm the one out there when it's really all those other people that should be out there and getting to talk. So we're basically interviewing everyone we can who worked there over the years, including the actors who tend to know the least about the company.
Right.
We've interviewed writers of Yu-Gi-Oh!, directors, producers, people in the home video department. There was, you probably know about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Uncut DVD that was out. We recently interviewed the guy whose idea that was. That won't be out for a while, unfortunately. But we're getting to, also fans ask me questions that I just can't answer. So I'm trying to it's fun for me to see all these people from my past and to also get the fans' questions answered at the same time. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I get questions all the time as well as someone who just does content on the shows where like, oh, why do you think the dub decided to do this? Or why do you think the dub didn't decide to do this? And I'm like, I have no idea.
We don't know.
I mean, I didn't even work on it. And people that did work on it, they're not even, certain of the answer, as you just kind of said. It's a lot of the decisions that came from above, I would assume.
Well, or like from standards and practices who was, maybe you got someone in a bad mood that day that said, absolutely, you cannot use that. And then the next day they had someone more lax who would have let that slide. Or, they were doing all of this to just have it be allowed to be on television. And so many people, they're so angry about so many things, but it's like, no, this wouldn't have been on television otherwise, and you wouldn't have gotten to be introduced to it. So, we get that there's, when you talk about 4Kids in general, that there's definitely a positive and negative side to all of this, and we're trying to cover all of it and be fair.
No, I think it's great. I think it is. And like censorship is the big thing, but what a lot of people don't realize, and I feel like as a generation has gotten older, a lot of us have kind of grown to realize it's like, it's not just one person's decision or everyone's decision and they all agreed with it, like, oh, let's cut this. It's like, well, sometimes you have to do that in order to get the show, as you just said, onto television. Like, to make it happen, you got to sometimes make decisions. And
and aside from decisions, it's a law. I mean, these are laws that the company would have been sued for a lot of money, or whoever, or the TV station that put it on would have been sued, and then subsequently, no one wanted a lawsuit. They just wanted to entertain children. So hopefully we did that.
It's well said. Oh, I think you did. I definitely think you did. And I mean, just so 4Kids Flashback, I'm going to link that whole podcast down below because I've listened to a couple of episodes, and obviously you just talked about something you have coming out in the future. That sounds super interesting.
Thank you.
But the uncut DVD, there are a lot of episodes that I haven't even listened to yet that I'm excited to kind of go back and listen to. And it's not just Yu-Gi-Oh, right? That's Yu-Gi-Oh, Sonic X.
Oh, it's covering everything.
Yeah.
Ultraman. I mean, shows that everyone's forgotten, like Funky Cops and Tama and Friends. And
Funky Cops. Wow.
What's really interesting is the amount of production that was going on there. And we cover a lot about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was, their foray into original animation, and it was a crazy place and time. It just that company like exploded overnight, and it was really fun to watch that happen.
Yeah, and be a part of it in your case as well.
Yeah, I mean a small part of it. Like as the actors, we would just kind of go in and do our work, and we would hang out, because it was a fun place to hang out, and we had pizza Wednesdays because when the Turtles were recording.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't know all the things that were going on there, and it is pretty cool to hear it. And also how young so many of the people working at that company were. It's pretty astounding that they got all this done with crazy time limits and
And what I've noticed too is, and that's always, I think, the sign of a really good company, there's so many people that were working there that are still there, like with what Yu-Gi-Oh dubbing
Konami,
is now.
Right.
There's a lot of people, maybe not like, voice actors, but Darren Dunstan, I mean, he's still a part of the Yu-Gi-Oh dubs, and he was obviously very famously Maximilian Pegasus. So that's always the sign
writers, the music, a lot of the music editors are still there. It's that says something. I mean, listen, Konami is a different company than 4Kids. I don't want to ever say that they're same company because it morphed and changed, and 4Kids is officially gone. And I don't ever want to. I don't know how. Like I know they took over the same space, but they are a different entity, and things are done completely differently there now. So if probably for good, in a good way, in a great way.
Right.
And people don't stay that long at a company if they're not doing something right. So that's a real testament to Konami.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, to just kind of swing it back to, your role and the, you've talked about how exciting it was to be a part of history in an anime community that and just the anime world where, it really did. I mean, it felt like it, and I think you even said this in another interview you did. I've watched a few of your interviews throughout the years.
Oh, no. Okay.
No. It was good. I think you had a great quote this was from, I think, a couple months back, where you said it just kind of blew up overnight. And that
felt like that.
That's what it felt like, right? I mean, could you, you voiced iconic characters, Mokuba, Bulbasaur. I mean, how did it feel being a part of that craze? And was there a moment where you knew, oh, this is massive?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different than today, because today you sort of, through social media and all that stuff, you feel it when you're part of something big. Mm-hmm. Back then, I mean, it was obvious because we'd see it on newspapers, like the headlines were there, or TV shows would report about Pokemon, the cards being banned in schools, but the time that I really felt it was the first movie, was it Pokemon 2000?
Yes.
We had the premiere at a great old theater in New York City that's no longer there, called the Ziegfeld, and lines around the block, and the cast got to go, and I remember just looking at my castmates, and that's when it hit me, I think. I'll never be at a premiere at the Ziegfeld. I was like, this could very well be the biggest thing I'm a part of. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And then, and stuff with Yugioh and all that stuff. Again, we weren't part of some of the I know some of the cast members did get invited to certain things, but for me, that was the one thing I got to go to as an actor. So, right. And it's not, obviously it's not all about that part of it. It's about the work and all that. But that was the first time I was like, oh, this is big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured there was probably there was a moment where it has to hit you, right? Because as you say, and a lot of people, maybe because we're older, don't realize that social media wasn't always around.
Oh
my
God, no, nothing.
And so
there were some message boards. That was it.
Right.
And the message boards were mostly for people to complain.
Yes.
They were not.
That hasn't really changed, Tara. Let's be honest. Yeah. Now it's just Twitter and Reddit, and that's what most of that is.
That's completely accurate. You're right.
Yeah, that hasn't changed too much. But no, I mean, sorry, as you were saying.
No, you're exactly right. So it would be a different world today if that started.
Yeah.
If that was
yeah, it is crazy, just the craze. I mean, it really, really was. I mean, so many kids that even if you don't watch anime, right? And there's a good amount of people that maybe don't watch anime for whatever reason, you still watched those Saturday morning cartoons that 4Kids delivered. Yeah. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Sonic X was a big one for me.
Kids didn't know it was anime.
Exactly.
It wasn't important. It was a show they liked. And
yeah.
And that's, they did the music right. They did certain things right to get kids excited. But yeah, it was appointment television, and I miss that today a lot. I really miss that.
Yeah, that's something that's probably never coming back, unfortunately.
Sports. I mean, sports are the only, yes. Saturday Night Live. I make sure I still watch it because
Me too.
I get the feels from it. There's something,
I know, streaming services, mass releases, and I know that's kind of outdone what we were used to back then, for sure. Another question just pertaining, and then I promise, guys, we will get to the Mokuba specific questions, I promise. But I'd be doing a disservice to so many of you if I just asked Tara only experience about Mokuba, you being somebody that has been, for so many years, such at a high level in terms of voice acting. I'd love to just kind of get your opinion on this. So obviously you worked for some of the most popular anime back in the early 2000s, as you said, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, to just name two. And now you're part of Jujutsu Kaisen, which I think has been one of the biggest anime in the last couple of years. It's one of my current favorites. So what do you think one of the biggest differences is between the dubbing world now versus when you first started back in the early 2000s?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference to me is that the people watching the shows are also reading the manga. So they're watching in a different way. They can't wait to see their favorite scene from the manga. Whereas in the past, it wasn't as popular, or Pokemon the kids weren't reading a manga, or the shows for the younger kids, they weren't reading ahead. And, now I think it's fun. You watch Titanic, the boat's going to sink. I think that is a fun way to watch a show, knowing what's going to happen and see how they make the changes from the manga to the show. That just wasn't talked about back then. Like I know I worked on My Hero Academia, and I auditioned, I got the job, and they said, oh, listen, we don't know if it's going to be like 3 episodes or 10 episodes. It was, a really big role in the manga. And then I did the show, and it was 1 episode, and I died. I won't say who I played because I don't want to spoil it for anyone
okay.
who
That was
hasn't
going to be
seen
my
it.
next question.
It was season 5. I'll just say that.
Okay. That season was crazy. I mean,
but-
a lot of
so-
people died.
That's what's crazy is that, like, some people don't necessarily remember my role, but they read the manga and they'll know my role from that because it was, like, they'll kind of know more about the character because of the manga.
Right.
Or the opposite happens, and it's a small role in the manga that gets blown up in the series because it just happens to work in that form,
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. I never really thought about that. But yeah, when you're dubbing in the early 2000s, a lot more of it is aimed at that younger demographic, which that was the whole goal of 4Kids. And there's not many 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds reading manga.
No.
I mean, that's just not a thing. Even today.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, but right. I think it's now an older audience especially a show like My Hero and JJK. I mean, they're clearly targeted for an older demographic. So, it's just different demographics. Yeah, it's a really, really good point. Yeah, really cool insight. So, switching it over to Mokuba. Obviously, I'm sure.
Mokuba.
Poor Mokuba. It's not a good sign when the person who brought that character to life is saying, "Oh, poor Mokuba." Listen, Mokuba was cool. We all sympathized with Mokuba. I think.
I love Mokuba. I love him. But they need to get him like a bodyguard. Like, how does someone that rich get kidnapped that often?
Great point.
I love. I mean, listen, whenever you're playing a supporting role like that, you're there to serve something. Like, so I understand that Mokuba's role was to humanize Seto.
Yes.
That was my function. And also, he had his own storylines and plots too, but that was really what his function was, and I get that. So literally, I would love to put a compilation together of every time I said, "Help! Help, big brother, help!" Like that could have been a whole episode right there.
Yeah, I'm sure a compilation's out there. If we look hard enough, we can probably find it.
Someone make that, yeah.
I'm sure someone has.
Just variations. Someone brought to my attention recently, and I feel so dopey about this. I guess there was one, because everyone referred to Seto as Kaiba.
Yes.
But Mokuba calls him Seto, and I guess we messed up once, and I called him Kaiba. And I would love to go back and fix it. Like,
that made the show?
Yeah. Someone asked me, like, is there a reason why? I was like, no, that was just a mistake. I mean, it's not crazy. Like, some people do call siblings by their last name, I guess, but that was not.
It wasn't Mokuba. Yeah.
No,
that was an
there was
oversight.
not like an intentional thing behind it. And again, we were working quickly. That's something that they wouldn't happen today. Like, these shows are done in such a more meticulous way today than the way. And again, we worked hard on them, but I think we were working at a fast pace, and
yep, that's what it is.
Yeah, and things slip through the cracks. But yeah, I was like, ooh, that's interesting that I called him Kaiba.
I'd love to know what episode that is, because I can't. And I've watched the dub through a couple of times. I mean, it's one little thing, I'm sure it. Well,
I'm glad you didn't notice it, because
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and I noticed a lot of things like that. And a lot of it has just been pointed out to me throughout the years. So, everyone watching, please comment down below what episode that's in, and
if you guys know, please tell me.
Yeah, absolutely, would love to.
Actually,
know.
Don't tell me. I don't want to see my mistake.
Well, it's not. But it's not your mistake, right? It's everyone's mistake. It's
right. But I feel like as an actor, those are the kinds of things we would catch in the booth. Like, I'm bummed that I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
So it's all right. I mean, I'll live. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it was only 20 years ago. So I think
exactly.
I think most people that I know loved your role as Mokuba. So I think they can take one oversight.
They'll forgive me.
I think they'll forgive you for calling him Kaiba once. But that's a good challenge to everyone watching. See if you can find that episode. And Tara, just don't read the comments, because people might comment on anything. Yeah. I usually don't either. So Mokuba. I'd love to know when you think of Mokuba, favorite moment. Could be an improv line, something that happened behind the scenes, character moment. What's your favorite thing when you think back to Mokuba?
It's so funny because listen, it's a long time ago. I forget so
Yeah.
much of it. I think my favorite was, and I also know, not that I didn't treat it seriously, but I don't know that I knew how lucky we were to be working. Or again, it was another job. Like I don't want to belittle it. Like, but when I got to go back and do Dark Side of Dimensions, I think I just appreciated him so much more. And like, again, he grew up and I was able to kind of be like, oh, okay, so I have his backstory. I know, like, that to me was one of the most fun things, to revisit a character after like 15 years. I mean, so few people ever get to do that. So
Yeah.
That was so special to me.
Yeah. And I mean, that actually leads perfectly into the next question, because I wanted to ask you, I asked Jonathan the same thing when it came to Marek, although Marek was not in Dark Side of Dimensions. So,
Right.
you get that added dimension with Mokuba. You're done with Yu-Gi-Oh! You're still obviously very involved in voice acting. And then you get the call a decade later, hey, they're doing a movie for the original show and the mobile app Duel Links, which would be a few years. Actually, I think it was around the same time. So you getting the opportunity to replay him, I mean, what was your thought when you heard the news? Were you excited?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll go back a little because I know this
please,
was one of your other questions. So basically, back then, you had to live in New York to record this show.
Yes.
So when I, in like 2005, was like, I'm out of here, I knew I had to give up the role. Same with like Megan Hollingshead when she was not able to play Mai anymore. So we lost those roles on the show because of it. We knew there's not. I mean, I wish there was a scandal, like, because people are like, why did you leave? And I'm like, because I moved. It was not like
it is the most asked question when it comes to Mokuba.
Weird.
Yeah, it is.
Well, because today people work remotely, but
Right.
that just was not. They didn't want to pay. 4Kids, going back to 4Kids, they had built these studios and they were going to use them. For them to pay for another studio would have been, in their minds, was, not going to happen. And the fans, again, it wasn't like you would go on Twitter and get backlash for this. So,
right.
So I moved. Carrie Keranen, who's awesome, took over for, I guess it was season 5, probably. And then she moved to LA. So when it came time for Dark Side of Dimensions, they were like, well, if we're going to keep the original cast, we're going to have to pay for a studio. And Eric Stewart called me. He's like, hey, I told them to use you because, again, you did the bulk of it. So that was, because I don't know if they would have just reverted back to the last actor who played it or if they would have come back. But Eric's like, I'm looking out for you, little brother. Like, I got you.
Oh, that's very nice.
Because I had done the bulk of it. So that was, that it was so nice of him. I mean, maybe they would have called me anyway, but it was so cool to just revisit it.
Yeah,
it's
I'm sure.
So unusual and I was like, how old is he now? Because listen, if he gets any older, I'm not going to be able to do the voice.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. Is that voice? Is it painful to do it all, or is it not painful?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, because it sounds like it would be.
It's anything with the scratchiness.
Right.
Just there's a limit to how much of it I can do in a session.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because I remember I asked Jonathan the same thing. I was like, does that Marek laugh hurt to do? He's like, very much. It is very. And doing that, I mean, your sessions could go for, like all day, right? It could go 8 hours a day if.
I mean, not Mokuba, but like,
true,
other roles. Fighting Foodons was a show I did there where I did a similar voice, and those were longer sessions. And, I was a singer in New York, and it definitely affected my voice, and I kept singing a little bit, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on the voiceover stuff because it's what's working.
Right.
But it also means that I have to rest my voice when I'm not using it, and, it limits what else you can do. For sure.
Yeah, no, very well said. I mean, one of the questions I had to ask, which you already answered, if you talk about Mokuba in the dub, you can't go too many minutes without somebody saying, why did they replace Tara? What was the deal with that? I think, and people really are like flabbergasted by it because they thought you did a great job.
Oh no, it's so nice, but I need a better version of that story.
Yeah, there's no scandal. You're confirming that, and actually, it's funny because I'm gonna I think have Megan on as well, who voiced Mai until I think Erica Schroeder then took over.
And Erica stayed in New York, so that's why that Megan didn't come back because her counterpart was in New York.
Right.
So the studio was paid for again. For me, when Carrie and I both moved, they were like, all right, we gotta suck it up and pay for a studio, which
Right.
I am very appreciative that they did.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that's funny. So that gives a lot of good insight. I mean, so many people, it's crazy. You read some of the theories that people have, and it's like, well, I read that that like they just weren't like either like satisfied with the performance or
Right.
or that or like you didn't want to do it anymore. That was another one that I read when I was like looking it up today, the different like, think
I love
pieces.
that people are speculating, but
Yeah,
but
right.
the truth is again, and this all goes back to 4Kids. There were circumstances where stuff like that did happen, where they would just change an actor because they weren't happy. And
True, yeah.
so it's not insane for them to speculate that.
Right.
If you listen, and I don't want to spoil this because maybe she'll tell you, I don't know if she'll talk about this, but in our interview with Megan Hollingshead for 4Kids Flashback, she talks about that happening on a show where suddenly like she just wasn't going in anymore and found out like, oh, they just replaced her. And then that person got another job and then they brought her back. Like there's a
That's
lot of
crazy.
continuity stuff going on there.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
just a little weird. But so I get why people are making up stories, because there were some real instances of that. So
People see it happen in the industry to one voice actor or one actor, and then it's like that. This must be what happened in this case
Right.
too. And I mean, that's
Right.
what the internet is. Yeah, I do plan to listen to your interview with Megan in the for the
thank you.
4Kids podcast before I interview her as well. But yeah, no, that's funny. So that's definitely something that I think a lot of people will be interested in hearing. So thank you so much
Setting
for
the record
for sharing.
straight.
Setting the
It's a
record straight,
boring
guys.
story.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no big juicy controversy. So that's
Yeah.
it's pretty much it is what it is. So Tara, you have so much experience with so many different franchises, so many popular franchises. Is there anything that stands out as unique when you look back at your time in Yu-Gi-Oh specifically?
I mean, well, let me think. I mean, honestly, and this is so cheesy and cliche, but it's the people we met along the way.
Yes,
I mean,
the friends you made.
it's so much more about that to me than it is often about what we're working on, because it's the memories of like running into people at the studio and being like, "Oh, let's go grab lunch." Or, I mean, I literally got a text from Megan 5 minutes before we started, because
That's amazing.
because we send each other Christmas presents, like whatever, like, and then Darren Dunstan and Susie Goldish, who was one of the engineers there, we're on a text chain and we're talking all the time. These are still my friends. So
yeah, that's amazing.
it's so much less about the show itself and about all those things that happened around the show.
Yeah.
Which is, I know, not a great answer for people who are listening to a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast.
Well,
but
it's an honest answer. Listen, I'd rather honest answers than good. That's a good answer. I think it's a very good answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We're doing. I'm sure you know about
Nostalgia
this.
Con, right? Is that
Nostalgia
what you're
Con.
gonna... Yes.
I mean, there's so many of us that are going to be together.
Yeah.
And I like everybody, and that's so unusual.
Right.
I'm just so excited.
No, you're right, because there's usually people that you work with where you're like, oh, I gotta see this guy again. But
Yeah.
to not feel that way about so many people is amazing.
It's
I'm
almost
sure.
too many, because I'm like, oh, how am I going to get time with everybody?
Right,
So
right.
it's really cool that this is happening, and I hope it means that we're going to do more of them. So it's called Nostalgia Con. It's in, I believe, San Antonio in April, and there's like, I don't know, probably 10 at least cast members from Yu-Gi-Oh that are going to reunite.
It is May 10th, May
Oh, it's
11th,
May.
and May
Oops.
12th. Because
I'm giving bad info.
No, but you're so busy. There's so much going on. That's why I'm here. I can,
Thank you for fixing it.
Yeah, don't worry. I got you. But yeah, I think it's Mother's Day weekend. That's how I remembered. It's that.
Okay.
It's that weekend.
That's good. Okay, that's good to know.
And I'm thinking like, because then I'm going to Florida May 13th to 17th, and then I'm talking to my friend, and I'm like, do I fly May 9th or the morning
Yes.
of May 10th? Go there May 10th and fly back May 11th.
Of course you do.
Oh my, it's a lot. It's not. It's
It
just,
is a lot.
It'd be a lot. But I know. But I the reason I'm even considering that a one day, fly in the 10th, fly out the 11th, is because I'd love the opportunity to, meet you guys, get some. You'll be signing Funkos, autographs, I'm
Everything.
assuming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know when it would ever. I mean, hopefully it will happen again, but for this one specifically, there are a lot of people, and not every convention is willing to fly that many people. So
Right.
it is pretty special.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'll for anyone interested watching, I'll 100% link that down below. San Antonio, right by the Riverwalk, May 10th, 11th.
Oh, I
and
love
12th.
Riverwalk.
Right
That's
by
right.
the
I
Riverwalk.
forgot about that.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful place. So, yeah, if you guys are interested, definitely check it out. Tara will be there along with a lot of Jonathan will be there as well. Who we episode 5 with a lot of great actors from the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So Tara, I always ask. This is such a cheesy question, and it's short, 6 words. What does Yu-Gi-Oh mean to you?
Friendship.
It
does, though.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah. I would agree with that. Actually, that's the best answer. Not to rib on any of my other guests. I think that's the best answer I've gotten so far.
It's interesting because, again, like Mokuba wasn't part of like the inner circle of them, because as an outsider, and then like the brother of the bad guy, I sometimes feel like not left out. I mean, that's the wrong way to say it, but like I don't necessarily feel like part of the crew,
right?
You know, and again, like, and listen, I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. I think it's funny. I'm fine when people tell me to shut up. But
right.
It's the show is about that. The show is about friendship. I love that. Dan Green and Eric Stewart have a podcast. Not based on it, but like inspired by certain things in the show. There's great messages. There's all those great messages in the show. But then for me, it's about, Amy Birnbaum and Lisa Ortiz and all these people and Wayne and Darren and Ted. And I mean, I'm going to forget names, so I'm going to stop listing them.
And many more.
There's so many. Jonathan, and I'm going to stop because someone will be pissed. The directors, everybody was awesome. And I mean, what's even cooler to me now is now that I'm interviewing these people who are writing the show.
Right.
I didn't know them then. These are some of the greatest people. I'm so sad that I didn't know them then. These are like, there's just good people involved all around in this. So friendship, family, all that stuff that's, even looking back at old episodes where Maddie Blaustein was still with us and did some of those episodes, and just the memories of all that. It's yeah. Again, for that period of time too, I feel like that's one of the shows that, not every single person was on every single show, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh really had tons of people from 4Kids on it because it kept going. So
yeah. No, it's a great answer, and I said it to Jonathan as well. I've been very lucky as someone who just talks about the 8 different Yu-Gi-Oh anime now to have met so many people.
There's so many versions.
Can you believe that? Yeah, there's so many versions. And actually, I'll be live for like 8 hours this coming Friday. It'll be the past Friday because we're expecting the 9th Yu-Gi-Oh series to get announced in 2 days on December 15th. Yes, we are expecting.
Whoa!
I mean, can you believe that though? I mean, we're gonna get a 9th show. It's insane.
I love it. I mean,
it's super cool. I asked Jonathan this, and I got to ask you as well. If I live in a crazy theoretical world when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh. If a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links movie happened, would you be willing to reprise your role as Mokuba?
Of course. I mean,
wonderful.
Listen,
So we already got 2 people back on. Yeah, that's great.
I don't think I don't know any of us that wouldn't. I'm trying to think if there's anyone who wouldn't do it at this point. And I don't think. But that also speaks right to how much you guys all love the show and you love working on it, right? I mean, it's a snap call, yes, Oh, of course. I mean, listen, there's things that like, again, now with voiceover specifically, what's tricky is we're trying to get AI protections put into everything. So, I mean, that would be the only reason that I think people wouldn't come back, is if there weren't protections in place or things like that. But aside from that, I don't know any actors who wouldn't want to be part of it. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And another point that I was going to make real quick, as I said to Jonathan, I've been so lucky to meet so many of you guys, and I've never, and I honest to God mean this, I've never had any bad experience with anyone.
No jerks?
No jerks.
Ooh.
No jerks. I'd love to give.
Think about.
Yeah, I mean, if you know someone, send me an email. I'll reach out to them. We'll try to get them on.
Call this jerk. See what they say.
Right.
No.
This person won't be great. Yeah. No, Tara, I have to thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Is there anything, the 4Kids podcast you do? I will absolutely link that down below. 4Kids Flashback. The Nostalgia Con, I'll link down below. I'll link any socials. So definitely, guys, follow Tara. She's awesome voice actress. Is there anything you'd like to say here at the end?
No, just thank you. It's people like you that love these properties that keep us working. So we're very appreciative, and the fans that are not yelling at us for the changes we made, it's nice to talk to them.
It's a silent majority, right? That's what they say. Most people that watched it are very happy, I think, with the product, and the loud minority. So
it's fine.
Listen,
I can take it.
Yes. I think you have to if you're in this, so that's good. It's a good trait to have. But anyway, Tara, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, this has been Voices from the Shadow Realm, episode 6. Some important links down below. Definitely go follow Tara. Follow her podcast as well, the 4Kids Flashback. It's awesome. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.